Your chest tightens before you even read the message. The phone lights up. A group chat starts exploding. Instead of that little hit of excitement, your stomach drops. You can already hear the noise of the restaurant. Already picture yourself smiling at jokes you don't care about, nodding through conversations that leave you feeling more absent than included. Your shoulders get heavy. Your breathing goes shallow. And suddenly reorganizing a closet, washing dishes, even staring at the ceiling, sounds more bearable than one more afternoon of being socially on. And here is the part that really gets under the skin. You can be surrounded by people and still feel your body bracing, like it is under attack. You sit at the table, everyone's talking, glasses clinking, phones face up, names and stories bouncing around. And yet inside, there is this cold little distance you can't cross. You laugh on cue, you say. Yeah, totally. You make it through. A lot of adults live in that split. Outwardly, functional. Inwardly, worn down. They aren't always desperate for more people. Sometimes they're desperate for less performance, less maintenance. Look at the moments that actually hurt. It is not the empty weekend that gets you. It is sitting at a crowded table, smiling on cue, and realizing nobody has asked you a real question in 2 hours. It is typing haha, yeah, totally into a group chat you don't even want to be in, because silence might be taken personally. And the sharpest part is how invisible this kind of social pain is. From the outside, you look included, you got invited, you showed up, you have contacts, notifications, names in your phone. But when something actually breaks, at 2 a.m., you scroll past dozens of people and still don't know who feels safe enough to call. So you try to force yourself into the shape everyone praises. You stay longer than your body wants to stay. You laugh a second too late because your brain was still processing 3 conversations at once. You get home, drop your keys, and feel that weird crash in your chest. Like your battery didn't just drain, it got stripped. Then comes the guilt. Why does casual connection feel like labor? Here is the brutal part. Many people never say out loud. Sometimes having more people around doesn't soften loneliness. It intensifies it. Because now, there are witnesses to the fact that you are not being met. And if you've ever had old friends turn shallow, betray you, or simply stop feeling emotionally safe, you don't just become antisocial, you become careful. You start choosing quiet, not because you hate people, but because low-quality closeness can hurt more than being alone. Look, if you've ever left a hangout feeling more alone than before you arrived, you're not broken. A lot of people know this exact pattern. You can laugh at the right moments, reply in the group chat, show up for birthdays, and still feel this strange flatness in your chest on the ride home. Then comes the second hit. You start wondering if the problem is you. Here's the wild thing. Being able to sit with your own emotions without immediately outsourcing them is not the same as being cold, damaged, or antisocial. Sometimes, it just means you don't need another person in the room to prove your feelings are real. You can feel sadness, boredom, stress, even disappointment, and not panic your way into texting 5 people just to avoid being alone with it. That doesn't make you less human. And if you've become selective, there is usually a reason. Maybe you got tired of being everyone's easy friend, while no one noticed when you were falling apart. Maybe you learned that some relationships only worked as long as you stayed agreeable, available, and slightly edited. So now you'd rather have 1 conversation where you can exhale than 6 where you perform. That shift can look like withdrawal from the outside. Research keeps landing on something people rarely say out loud. A small circle does not automatically equal a deprived life. There are people with very few contacts who report very little loneliness, and people surrounded by names, invites, and notifications who still feel emotionally unfed. Because the real difference isn't volume. It is whether your connections let you be unarmored. Look at what actually happens. In a noisy group setting, part of your mind is busy scanning faces, timing reactions, choosing the acceptable version of what you really think, deciding when to laugh, when to soften, when not to say the strange, but honest thing. That is cognitive labor. It consumes attention. But this is where the mechanism gets more subtle and more dangerous, because relief from overstimulation can look a lot like emotional safety, even when it is actually a scar. Some people aren't alone because they hate connection. They're alone because connection started to feel expensive. Too many shallow conversations, too much one-sided effort. So, we have to separate two very different forces. Chosen solitude restores. Chronic perceived isolation corrodes. One feels like exhaling in your own home, a quiet room, a lamp on, your body unclenching. The other feels like staring at your phone at midnight, knowing names, but not knowing who is truly safe to call. Same empty calendar, different psychology. That is the real mechanism underneath the data linking long-term loneliness with attention problems, cognitive strain, even physical health costs. Not punishment for being introverted, not evidence that solitude is unhealthy. The injury begins when a person's need for reliable connection goes unmet for too long. Look, if your nervous system goes quiet only when the invitations stop, that is information, not a flaw. The practical move is not to force yourself into more connection. It is to build a cleaner filter around the connection you allow in. Start there. Stop asking, how many people should I have? And start asking, who leaves my body feeling steadier after contact? That is the metric, not popularity. A useful protocol is brutally simple. After every interaction, take 10 seconds and scan the evidence. Tight jaw, heavy chest, mental fog, the urge to hide your phone, replaying the conversation in the shower, feeling like you performed instead of existed. That is not chemistry. That is cost. On the other hand, if you feel more coherent, less defended, more like yourself, that relationship is probably compatible with your wiring. Then, protect your bandwidth like it is a finite organ, because it is. Don't answer immediately. Just because someone has access to you, don't upgrade an acquaintance into emotional entitlement because they're persistent. Create delays, shorter hangs, clear exits. I can do an hour. I'm not available for that. I can talk, but not tonight. These aren't rude sentences. The deeper shift is this. Solitude should be a choice, not a collapse after repeated disappointment. So keep a very small circle if that fits you, but make it intentional. Fewer people, more reliability, less performance, more truth. Ask yourself one hard question. If something broke at 2 a.m., your car, your heart, your sense of safety, who could you actually call? Look, the promise here is not that you'll become more liked if you optimize hard enough. It is that you get to stop treating your own wiring like a defect. If your life works better with one person you trust, a quiet apartment, unread messages that don't trigger guilt, and a nervous system that finally unclenches at night, that is not a failed version of adulthood. That is data. That is self-knowledge. And once you see it clearly, you can make cleaner choices. Maybe your version of connection is 2 names you could call at 2 a.m., not 20 people who react to your stories. Maybe your best relationships are the ones where silence is allowed. Plans are simple, and you don't have to perform being on. Maybe after being talked over, used, disappointed, or slowly drained by one-sided friendships, your standards got sharper. That doesn't automatically mean you became cold. Sometimes it means you became accurate. Sometimes the healthiest shift in a person's life is that they stop confusing access with intimacy. Here is the part I want to leave you with. You don't owe the world a socially acceptable personality. You don't have to inflate your circle to prove you're healed, normal, open, fun, or emotionally evolved. The real measure is much quieter than that. Can you tell the difference between isolation that harms you and solitude that restores you? Can you notice which rooms make your chest tighten and which people let your body stay soft? So, if this landed somewhere real for you, keep that. Let it interrupt the old story that said something was wrong with you for wanting less noise and more depth. And tell me this: what was the boundary that instantly revealed who actually respected you and who only liked your availability?